yeah, it was.
Where's he based these days? Did he say?
He lives in Richardson, but they've given him an apartment in at Mid-America, and he says it's a 6.5 hour drive. So he'll stay at home for about a month, and he'll drive up there for a week, and then come back home. Of course, he can do stuff by Zoom, and then he goes up there and works, So he's got that figured out.
It's amazing how much stuff people are still able to do remote. Teaching is remote.
Yeah. It's going to be the wave of the future. You just know it is. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
People can schedule classes after their work, before their work.
One of the things
you don't have to build dorms. You don't have to, you don't have to build that much classroom space if you're gonna do it. It's gonna be the way of the future. You can't
online
upkeep.
school.
Yeah. You can't upkeep buildings and keep building. At least I think it is.
I guess I never thought about that. That like there might be like you think some of these schools with physical campuses eventually will just go online only, or there'll be new schools that come up.
Well, the one that did it was Liberty.
Are they doing a lot online?
Falwell, oh my stars, he started it before anyone had ever entered anybody's imagination. Yeah. And my word, look at the tens of thousands of people that do that there.
That's really interesting.
We've got a guy that just joined the church. He just moved here from Florida. He's just been accepted into the PhD program in history.
At Liberty?
And he'll do it, he'll do it. I'm certain he'll do it all by Zoom.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still trying to get into this program in New Orleans for the.
Have they not
for the
accepted you yet?
I think they have like their acceptance council or whatever this week. But they're telling me, I think at least 90% of it is all going to be online or whatever.
They'll overlook those D's and C's and they'll let you in there, I'm sure.
Well, I just dropped your name a few times. You're like, oh, okay. Well, I guess
honey, dropping my name today doesn't do you any good. I can tell you that.
We're not going to get into that.
That won't help you a bit. Probably hurt you.
We're not going to get into that. But it was a good visit. Finished up with your friend, Dr. Allen.
It was. It was great. Good to be with him. Good for Kate and Debbie to spend some time together. They got to know each other a little bit, and she doesn't go with him all the time, and so this was a rare opportunity for her to come and be with him.
I enjoyed hearing a little bit of his testimony and just where he came from, and I didn't even know the thing that he was running or that people had asked him to run for the SBC presidency. That was cool. Yeah,
he called me back and he said, I'm just not going to do it. He said, it's, Kate just was not good. I'm not going to do it.
Gotta
Number
be united
one,
there.
against, her wishes. And
were you one of the people trying to get him to do it?
Well, I told him for a couple of years he needed to, yeah.
Because people have told you to do it too. I know.
Well, that's not going to happen.
I know, you've done enough of that.
That's
enough of
just
those
not going to
things in the
happen.
past.
Number one, I don't want it. Who would, I
It's
don't
tough.
want it. Somebody else wants it, they can have it.
Is this a tougher time for the SBC now?
You better believe it. I just was a young pastor just as the conservative resurgence. I graduated I finished up school in 79, and by 80 I was pastoring a small country church, 12 the first Sunday, and 16 months later I left there to go to Southwestern because I knew I needed more education. And of course those were the years that everything was just kind of, that was all going on.
Yeah.
But that was a divided convention. This is a fractured convention.
Well, explain the difference. What do you mean?
Well, one, we were divided between the moderates and the conservatives then over the authority of Scripture.
Right.
That was just two groups. Now you got a half a dozen different groups that are out there better.
I didn't even know that.
It's just fractured off into multiple parts. And, no matter who says what, here's let's see. Let me see if I can find a passage. Well, I'll give you an example from
Yeah.
the time that I was running for president of North Carolina State Convention, and the editor there came out with an article against or covering the first conservative president. He was elected president, the first conservative. He makes a speech over at Southeastern, and in that, he gives a sermon, and in that sermon, I'm just going to use, I can't remember the exact situation. In that sermon, he talks about, he'll say something about, I'm not for these things that bring disunity, but the cross of Jesus Christ is what, and so he takes out, I'm not for, and he takes out cross. Oh, horrors. He said, I'm not for the cross.
Did he really do that?
What, did you not see that happen to me yesterday?
Well,
or
yeah.
to Dr. Allen?
There's been some frustrations on Twitter.
Let's take this word here, and let's take this thing here.
It's so sad,
and put them together and make it say what I want it to say, which will demean him and not accurately, represent what he said.
I don't even want to give that stuff the airtime. I guess I'm more interested. I mean, is it worth talking about, like, what are the different, groups within the SB scene? Do they even have names?
Oh yeah. They're various groups. You got Baptist 21. You've got the Conservative Baptist Network. You've got this group over here, and then
Is
this
the
group.
Founders in there? Is that a group?
The Founders are, parts of the Founders
Okay.
are in there. That's not an SBC group.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But the Founders, there many of those guys in there, do that. It's just divided up so many different factions.
So is that,
and each one of them carries their own torch.
Is that why we have so many presidential nominees this year?
I'm trying to run through. I don't think any of them are a part of any of those groups.
Oh, okay.
Sympathies probably lie with, somewhere in all of that. We're grasping at straws to try to, when people are broken and they're determined to stay broken, you can't help fix it. And the SBC is broken, and it's almost determined
To stay that way.
And you can't help bring people together if they're determined, no, we're going to be broken, and that's what we want.
Well, it's just something that we got to commit to prayer. I appreciate you entertaining some of these questions. I feel a little bit like an outsider. I've been a Southern Baptist all my life, but just, I've always been in really small churches at the edge and church plants, kind of away from the South. So a lot of the polemics of all of it, I just am not very familiar with.
Yeah, well,
but now
you're better off. You're far better off.
Well, but this is a denomination that you love. I mean, this is a denomination that has carried, the two of our biggest distinctives carry the torch for biblical fidelity, along with baptism by immersion. Like this is, and it's a mainline denomination that has stayed true, again, to biblical inerrancy when we've watched other mainline denominations fall away. Like evangelicalism doesn't really mean anything anymore.
Yeah, At least the term doesn't mean anything much anymore. You're right. It's been so overassigned and used and misused and abused and everything else that it just doesn't mean much anymore.
Well, and we saw that with another denomination who had a big conference this week, and I guess it's like that gives me pause as I watch some of the things that are coming out of there. Like, wow, if we turn our backs even the slightest bit to biblical inerrancy.
Well, you may see that in the SBC, that there's going to be a faction that's just going to say, we're done, we're out, we're gone, we're over here.
Like a conservative.
A lot of them have already done it with their giving.
Oh,
but
really?
They have been able to cover that by saying, because a lot of those who've already are out are still giving to NAM and IMB. but they're not giving to anything else.
That's really interesting.
But they will report, oh, look, our money is up. Well, sure it is. Because your money's, there are tons of people that are giving everything now to IMB and NAM.
Because they support those organizations, but not the central
we want to support missions. We don't want to support this other mess that's going on.
Sounds like you kind of agree with them a little bit.
I do. Sure I do. And I've not done that here because I keep clinging to let's hold the torch for the cooperative program. Let's keep praying that somewhere sanity will come back into vogue, and it will avert all of this stuff. And we can, as Dr. Allen rightly said, get back to the main thing, which is missions, evangelism, baptisms,
And he said preaching as well.
Preaching.
Which those are like some pillars of what has been.
That doesn't mean you don't care about other issues.
Sure.
But the main issue that we've been given is this.
When I was in the IMB, that's one of the things that they talked about. Like when you get on the field, there's going to be so many good things that you can do.
Sure.
Important things to invest in. But you got to keep the main thing. Which for the IMB, that was evangelism and church planting.
Yeah.
Like that has to be central to what
it's not all these other issues, though these other issues may be important.
We've talked about that some as a staff. We've got a big vision session again happening this week, and one of the guys that's worked with us and helped with us, mentored us, has talked about like chasing good things that aren't a core part of like what your church is supposed to, as God has called your church to do, and it ends up being called sideways energy because you got people going this way and that, and maybe those things are good, but we're not aligned, so we're not moving forward. I've given that a lot of thought. That's not necessarily true of the SBC, but it definitely is something that we think about as we try to be better in the future.
Yeah.
Well, all our friends, thanks for coming on this quick journey to talking about SBC stuff. If you've tuned us out up until now, we're gonna talk about we're gonna start talking about the message, and to do that, first of all, we got.
Oh yeah, I'm over here in Ephesians.
You're in Ephesians. I was going to tell you to turn
Luke.
back. Yeah, we're in Luke chapter 9. Of course, at the end, I'll ask you to talk about where you want to go in Ephesians this week. But to begin with this message, we got to talk about one of the most important things, and that's how short Dr. Allen is. He is a very diminutive person, which he made very clear to us over the course. He just put that right out there.
Well,
Brethren,
that's a pretty good illustration. Now look at me, because I'm 5'6".
Yeah.
And he said that was the average height, which I found that to be interesting. You've often wondered that. I've never taken the time to go and look it up, but the average person being 5'6", the average man in Jesus' day.
Well, it must have made those people that were really tall that much more like striking. You had people like Goliath, and you had there were other people.
Do you think Jesus was above average in height?
Well, the guys that are producing The Chosen certainly think he was. He's like towers above everybody else.
You think he had hair that went up and
well, Paul says
that made him even look taller?
Is it Paul that says he had nothing in his countenance? Or that was Isaiah. Nothing in his countenance made him appear that much more different than everybody else. So I would say, biblically speaking, probably not. But it makes you wonder, what are you laughing about?
Oh, just laughing at you.
But, it makes you wonder, people are flocking to Jesus, what you always wonder, was there some physical identifier? Obviously, there's a spiritual component, no question. But was there some physical identifier? Like, this is the guy.
I don't know. I've seen people rail against it based on that passage that you mentioned out of Isaiah, that no, he was not attractive at all. He was, nothing about him attracted people. I don't know, Well, the picture I have of Jesus is always the pictures that I grew up with,
right.
In church.
And that's so funny because the pictures that we had in church growing up, it was like a Western Caucasian Jesus, which is
I guess so.
It wasn't until I got older until I thought, wow, that's really, and they're trying to do it in the Chosen, but there's still a lot of white people in that. But it was a totally different ethnicity there. It's a different skin color and all. So it took me a while to. I just think all this is fascinating, and that even in the passage they talk some about how they're both children of Abraham. That was a particular line that they were in, particular race they were in.
Yep.
But I don't know. You think about Jesus as the perfect, spotless lamb, right?
Mm-hmm.
I doubt he was ugly, right? He's not going to have I don't know. It's not like one side of his face is misshapen or something like that. That can't be a sacrificial lamb.
I would think that he
Is this beyond the pale?
I would think that he just looked like an average person.
Yeah.
Nothing there that would, back to your question, nothing there that would attract the crowd to him and say, wow, look, there goes...
sort of like Saul did.
Yeah, Tom Cruise, or
right.
goes Saul, or there goes, Shaquille O'Neal,
Now that, yeah.
Shaq.
So NBA players...
Look how big he is. And
NBA players, NFL players, that's a good one. Because all those guys are just larger than life.
Yeah,
you see him
Tom Brady. Oh, look, there's
that?
Tom Brady. So I don't think it was anything like that. But it's interesting to think Zacchaeus was short. Evidently, Jesus was at least normal height for the day, because he's just going to walk down through there and everybody's going to stand out there to see him. But Zacchaeus has got to get up a tree.
Doctor, I can tell that you and Dr. Allen are friends, because there were so many similarities in how you guys build the context around the passage.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about how, first of all, this was in Jericho, which that was completely lost to me from my Sunday school days. I don't even know if they talked about that.
Yeah.
But that was a big deal for a couple reasons. Maybe the biggest one was that it was the last stop before he gets to Jerusalem. This is close to his crucifixion.
That was a great phrase that he would go back to. Now that is what would you call it? Not a linguistic, but maybe a grammatical
construct.
To keep drawing you back.
Yeah, right.
I thought that was such a great way to keep pulling you back to this, the last stop on the road to Jerusalem. Man, that sounds like the title of a book.
It does sound great.
Yeah.
Well,
the last stop to Yuma.
Oh,
you remember that
the
Western?
310 to Yuma. Yeah. That's a great movie. I've only seen the remake. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm probably failing you there. Well, so another thing that was interesting about Jericho is that it was one of the places that the tax was collected.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was interesting too.
I didn't know that. Again, and that makes it all the more notable that Zacchaeus is the chief tax collector in one of the chief tax collecting cities.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty great how he described that. He sat upon the top of a pyramid scheme.
Right.
Which is exactly what it was.
And that's another illustration for us of there's nothing new under the sun. There was people extorting money back then, the same as they are now.
Yeah, just like the IRS today. Yeah.
Well, and you think about, and so I know we joke about the IRS and that sort of thing, but nobody likes the IRS. They're kind of just, everyone's like, wow, they're shunned, they're always taking money from us, that sort of thing. But it was that times 1,000.
Well, how do you like 80,000 more IRS agents now carrying guns?
Are they carrying guns now?
Well, they were.
Oh, okay.
The whole proposal was that.
Oh, okay.
Now, how do you like that? Hey, we're here to talk to you about your taxes. Yeah. And by the way, I'm packing. I got it.
I shouldn't laugh at that. Let's have a quick word about your taxes.
Yeah.
So, as if you basically, we roll our eyes at the IRS for the most part. But the Jews, they deeply hated these tax collectors. I mean, it was, and that was so interesting. He mentioned in the Mishnah that the rabbis basically gave people a blessing to lie to the tax collectors.
That's in the Midrash, which is the commentary on the Old Testament. Which in all the years of reading commentaries, I've never come across some place that says, and this. This passage means you can lie to the IRS. Everything I've always heard is you have got to be honest in every area. In every area.
Well,
what we say about each other, what you say to the IRS.
Well, I mean, that stuff's not, that's not the inspired word, right? It's these commentary from famous rabbis, trusted rabbis through the years. So there's some fringe stuff. There's probably some contradictory stuff. I mean, like the Midrash is, there's so much in there. But so that was another helpful note that he brought out, again, just to see this is how rejected tax collectors are. Yeah. And then, of course, the word about how a sycamore tree grows and how he was able to climb in there. And then Love the illustration talking about, like, as we evangelize, are we looking for the men in the trees, the men and women in the trees?
That was interesting too. I thought that was really good. Yeah, that was really neat.
And then Jesus, because that was part of what he was talking about with regards to, like, Jesus sees all the individuals in a crowd.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
we can't do that.
No,
that's another issue there. We can't see. We should see, individuals.
Yeah.
But we can't see everybody.
It's impossible for us.
God's able to do that. And I'm thankful that we have a God that sees not the crowd, but the individual. I'm in a fallen body. I'm in a fallen world. I strive to do that. Don't always do that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest difficulties for any pastor, is to be able to share time equally with people, to give people what they need. Give people what they need at the right time when they need it.
Yeah.
And nothing shows your fallibility more quickly, because you're always going to let people down.
Nothing shows your fallibility any more than the senior pastor position of a Baptist church. Nothing will show your faults, your flaws, your fallibility any more than that.
I really try to counsel people on that, not specifically about the senior pastor, but like
going into ministry.
Well, I'm just talking about people coming into our church.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you'll interview people when they come into the church, and what do they say? Well, they tell you all the things that were wrong at their last church.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, now, this is not a perfect church.
Right.
We are in a good season, but if we haven't let you down yet, just buckle up.
Yeah.
Because, we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes.
Yep.
But
That's for sure.
But going into the ministry is another good one there.
Yep.
Just about, like, it's not everything you might think it's cracked up to be.
You have to stop and think, who does God call into ministry? People who were gross sinners in darkness until he saved them.
Yep.
That's all he's got to work with.
Well, and he chooses weak people, that his strength might be perfected in their weakness.
And I think people in ministry have deep weaknesses. I really
There's
do.
no question about
so that the grace of God, when we allow him to shine through us, shines through even more.
Pastor and I are just going to do another hour right now where we just talk about our weaknesses. So,
Well, I got plenty, but an hour wouldn't cover them.
That's right. We need some group therapy. Hey, that's another thing that people are doing on Zoom now, is that the Zoom therapy industry.
Really?
Oh, it's amazing. Joe, do you know about this? Like, so many people getting...
How many groups are you a part of?
She's the counselor.
I'm six.
She's
I'm in
the
six different groups.
She's
right
the
now.
counselor. Well, no, it's not just group therapy. It's like one-on-one. Yeah, I forgot to say that earlier. Anyway,
yeah, because Kathy does a lot of one-on-one
does.
Zoom. Especially, she's had cancer and she's cancer-free, thank the Lord. And she's done a lot of counseling, even when going through all of that. That's pretty amazing. That's commitment to ministry.
She's
right
so
there.
resilient. Well, and that's a word for you guys too, because it seems like it's almost once a week I talk to somebody and they're looking for a counselor. They can't find a counselor. Now we do not have unlimited resources in the counseling world, but
we're working on it.
But we're working hard on it, and you can go to is it valleydale.org/counseling?
Yes.
You can go to valleydale.org/counseling, and you can find one of the counselors that either works here at the church, some work remote. So
we're
there's help
hoping
for
and
you there.
praying that ministry is going to be expanded.
Absolutely.
That we're going to expand it beyond what it is today.
That's one of the things that the staff is praying about hard. Like, who are there other people we can bring on?
Because a couple of us need counseling every day.
It's really just because Pastor and I are really broken.
Yeah.
We need a lot of help.
A lot of fixing.
Pastor's had an addiction to Krispy Kremes for many years now. He's looking for.
You know what? Jeff Vines came up to me last night. You know Jeff Vines?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Tall.
Yeah. Well, his
thin,
daughter graduated.
Graduated, thin as a rail.
Yeah, Jeff,
told me how he stopped and got a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts, hot, got in the car and started eating and ate about 3 of them. I looked up with Jeff. Look at how skinny you are. Sure you can do it.
I love
Why
Jeff.
do you come and tell me that? I smell him and gain weight.
You know, Jeff can really play the piano. I've been trying to get him to come. Yeah, he won't do it, but I've been trying. That's your call out, Jeff. Well, and his wife Tara is one of the counselors
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Great family. And Leah
Great family, good
Leah's
family,
graduating this month. We're excited for that. Well, we should probably limit ourselves here. I do want to hear a little bit though about what's where you think you're going in Ephesians 4 this
Well,
week.
if you look at Ephesians chapter 4, you come to the big break in Ephesians. And it begins with the un, or the therefore. So he's basing everything that he's going to say on what he has just said in the first 3 chapters. And now you get in, there was only one imperative in the first 3 chapters. And I think it's right here in verse 11. Therefore, remember that formerly you were Gentiles. I think that's a soft imperative there.
Right, just remember.
Remember
yeah.
that you were at that time separate from Christ. Just remember that. That's a soft. He's going to come to 36 or 39. I can't remember which. Imperatives, chapter 4, 5, and 6.
Wow.
Which is you move from doctrine to practice, and you move from, literally the way I'm looking at it is God's devotion to us in the first 3 chapters.
Yes.
He's devoted to us to save us. And in 4, 5, and 6, how devoted are we? Are we willing to be devoted to the God who is devoted to us? Well, how are we to be devoted?
I think
And
that's
he
wonderful.
starts off with, saying, I'm the prisoner of the Lord. I implore you. There you go. I'm imploring you. The word there is encouraging.
Yeah.
It's a soft imperative. He starts with a soft imperative. I'm encouraging you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling which you've been called. And he says, with all humility, gentleness, patience, showing tolerance for one another in love. Now, those are 2 things there. You do this with humility and gentleness and patience, and then you show tolerance to one another in love. So, and it's all around this one idea right here, diligent to preserve the unity. I'm not so sure that's not, preserve the unity is not the major verb, although more people would say walking worthy would be the main verb there.
I love getting this window into how you're thinking through the message.
So, well, that's what I've been doing this morning. And, if it's walking worthily or walking worthy, it's how do you ultimately do that? It's by preserving the unity. How do I preserve the unity? Well, in humility and gentleness and patience.
So the first way we're going to show our devotion to the Lord is
By just
preserving the unity.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good word, especially with where we had to start today, thinking about the SBC and all that, so we can pray for them to preserve the unity in that way. Praying for you, Pastor, as you prepare the message this week. I'm excited for this part of the devoted series, and that's going to lead into a fall series where we're talking even more about our devotion to the Lord. So, and you can tell people that this week too if you want to.
Well,
just tell them your schedule for the rest of the year.
That's all still percolating right now because there's a wrinkle that's been thrown into that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't
but
wait to hear about
we'll
it.
just kind of see what the Lord's doing, how the Lord's leading in it.
Love it. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in with us today. What did we talk about? You guys, I hope, you guys stay sweet out there. Pastor didn't tell you that yesterday, but be sweet. And we'll see you on Wednesday night. It's the final regular midweek this week.
Yeah, and then we have the big blowout party.
For the Awana clubs. Yeah, that's next Wednesday. That's going to be fun. Are you going to be able to make that this year? Awesome. Love the Awana party. My kids go for the medals and the ice cream.
Yeah. That's why I go. I keep waiting for my medal. I feel like little Opie.
We need to give you a medal. That would be really funny.
I feel like little Opie that, I didn't win the race, so I don't get a medal.
It's the rare
I wanted me a medal.
The rare Awana double doctorate award.
Yeah.
We'll just hang it right now. Say goodbye, Pastor.
Goodbye, Pastor.